You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here's your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
I am Glenn the Geek from Ocala, Florida.
And I'm Jamie Jennings, and I'm currently in Palatka, Florida. You're listening to... people that are like, never heard of that, and they're like, why is she always there? You're listening to Horses in the Morning on the Horse Radio Network for Wednesday, February 21st, episode 3370. Good morning, horse people.
Ah, Wednesday, the day we cover Glenn's favorite topic. Horse health. And Jamie makes you feel better about yourself with the latest weird news from around the world. Happy Wednesday.
After this sad chapter in Jamie's life is over, I will say that she will never be coming back to Palatka, Florida. There's not a vegetarian restaurant within 80 miles of Palatka, Florida.
Man, I gotta give a shout out to Pub Subs. Publix has the best subs.
They do, actually. They do have good food in the deli there.
Pub Subs, baby. They have a vegetarian meat sub too. Yeah.
You've been living on subs?
I've spent a lot of time in the Publix deli line, not gonna lie.
Well, Brad from Double D Trailers is back to talk about trailer tires and suspension and to answer the question that everybody fights about on social media, whether it's RVs and trailers, and that is, how much air do you put in your tires? What do you go up to that thing that says on the side of your tires, or do you put a little less? What is the rule about air in your tires? He's going to answer that one today. And we also have Auditor and saddle fitter Janell Cameron on to talk about the importance of saddle fit. We have some weird news, and we'll do a little bit of a post show for you as well. But the big news over the last 5 days, it has dominated all of the horsey news, but also the mainstream news everywhere. We have never had Shane Rose on the show, I don't think.
I don't think so, but I would like to thank all the people who submitted his story for weird news. But I'm like, at this point with this show, this is just news.
Yeah, exactly. So Shane Rose, he's in a show jumper or an eventer, I can't remember.
He's an eventer.
An eventer out of Australia. And he was doing what they call a fancy dress class at the Wallaby Hill Extravaganza. I love their names for stuff down there. He was doing the fancy dress class. And what you want to tell everybody what he wore in the fancy dress class?
Well, I don't know how many people have seen the movie Borat, but Borat made that there's a scene where Borat wears what I guess is called a mankini at this point, but it's like a V-shaped bathing suit type item, and it goes over the shoulders and V's down into, the nether regions. And Borat was wearing it and made it kind of, funny. And then that is what I don't even need to describe it. Every single person listening to this has seen it. Okay. And I would like to thank Shite Eventers United on Facebook. Oh my
God, that must have went crazy on there.
Well, they posted the photos of Shane jumping the fences in full jumping position from behind, like while the horse is suspended in midair.
I mean, this is less than a thong.
It was like people were like, it looks like he was prepared, like he shaved and got some waxing done and all that. I mean, good Lord. Thank you. And then it was like, you all zoomed in, you did. And I had just zoomed in. Like, I don't know why. It was terrible, but it was hilarious. Well, and, he's Australian and they're kind of funny like that.
Well, a crusher in Australia didn't find it very funny.
No. Actually, I think there was one Karen who did not think it was funny at all.
And reported it in Equestrian Australia, which is their governing body, suspended him. Now, he's on the road to the Olympics this year. So they suspended him, and they got such a backlash from social media, from direct contact, like thousands of people, that they immediately, within a couple of days, reinstated him. So he's back aiming for the Olympics. And there's been another positive benefit, too.
But is it positive? Is it positive?
Well, I don't know. Did you see the number of people who were posting their naked pictures in support?
Oh my
There
God.
were hundreds of them. Men,
And then
women,
everybody
didn't matter.
was like posting pictures of him for their profile and like solidarity. I mean, they were like, let him go. But here's the positive. Mankinis will be provided to all the spectators at next year's Wallaby Hill extravaganza.
And they're going
Yay.
to donate $100 to men's health charities for every brave person that's brave enough to wear them. So if you put them on, they're going to donate $100.
I'll give you $100 not to wear it. It's fine.
I think this is very funny. It provided a little chuckle. It's perfect that it was Australians. I think that's just perfect. I don't know how many TV shows we've seen recently where Jennifer and I went, yep, that's an Australian. Australians can get away with that. And then this happened.
And then I remember the like here in Florida, John Holling, didn't he do like a whole
Yes.
streaking thing?
Yes.
Well, he wasn't in competition, I guess, so they couldn't hold that against him. But you know what? Naked men are funny.
Well,
I don't
you know
care.
what? I think we could make a fortune because every year we cover the nude calendars. We could have the mankini calendar next year with everybody that's posted in their mankinis.
I'm sure somebody's
Sell
thought
out.
of that already.
I'm sure. Yeah, we're not the first ones. But it would sell out. We'd make a fortune, Jamie. Yeah.
Would we?
No, not really. It sounds like it would. On paper, it sounds good. Well, we have 3 auditor birthdays. Geraldine, Jana, and Samantha. Happy birthday to all of you.
Painting the picture yet again. I'm in Palatka, Florida. I'm currently sitting in my mother's bedroom. My mom is in the hospital, and I'm sitting with this is the glamour of podcasting, Glenn. I am sitting I'm in the corner of her bedroom, and I have a nightstand that is holding the computer. But the nightstand is not a desk, so I can't slide up underneath it. So I'm kicked back, sitting up, holding a microphone like I'm Taylor Swift, but I can't move the microphone too far forward or too far backwards because it'll either you can't hear me or it'll hit me in the face. So I'm trying to be very careful. I am currently sitting on a potty chair for seniors, and this is the glamorous life that I am living right now. But my daily Whinnie goes out to the huge amount of emails and kind things that people have sent me, our listeners, and you know, a lot of you know what I'm going through and have been through it and are sharing your stories, and I just want to say a heartfelt thank you. I mean, people sending me weird news and then including an encouraging message in there. It's just really kind of all of you and the listeners who, Clark, how everybody wants to get together while I'm here. And this is a quicker trip, and I'm leaving tonight or tomorrow morning, actually. And so I just want to thank everybody for sending kind words to me, and I love you all.
Very good. Well, in 2017, October 24th of 2017, we had the good folks on from Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club. Do you remember what city that was in?
I think it was Philadelphia, right?
That's right. They were one of the riding clubs that still exists in Center City, Philadelphia. Now, all of you that have been to Philadelphia know that there's 2 deadly roads in Philadelphia. I-95 goes through Philadelphia, and it's no joy, and then the Schuylkill Expressway. And they call it the Schuylkill Expressway because pretty much that's what happens there all the time. So, but I-95 is just a hazardous road. Well, apparently the other night at 4:45 a.m., Angelo Palmer was heading to work, and he leaned out the window of his shuttle bus to capture a horse galloping along I-95. Yep, that's right. At about 40 miles an hour, they estimated this horse was clipping along the highway, which must have been absolutely terrifying for the horse, because it's terrifying if you're in a car. They called the police, and police responded, and they received numerous reports from people saying a horse was running along I-95. And the Pennsylvania State Police showed up and apparently corralled the horse and managed to tie it to a fence, contacted the owners, which happened to be the Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club. And that's a nonprofit devoted to horsemanship and also getting kids involved with horses and stuff. But apparently it had escaped from the stable and took quite a jaunt. It was like a couple miles from the stable when it was found.
And he was hauling mail on the pavement. And I was looking at him. So there's a video of news crews that did a whole thing about it. And watching this video, first of all, it is a very attractive horse. Beautiful, warm blood type horse galloping. And it was not going 40 miles an hour because that's like racehorse speed.
Yeah, I know.
So
it seemed like it, though, in the video.
It was definitely hauling butt. And then I just, as a horse person, you cringe because I feel like everybody thinks horses just know how to be tied up. And in the video, they didn't show the corralling part, but they showed the after part, which is where the horse was tied to a chain link fence with razor wire along the top of it. And I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Yes, it was like tied up to the fence of a prison. And I'm just like, all horses don't tie. And all I could see was this horse setting back and then pulling the razor wire down. Then you got a big hot mess.
The cop was just pissed he had to deal with this at 4:45 a.m.
Yes, and then the news crew chick was so sarcastic, and they just made the worst horse puns. And he wants to be out. He wanted to see the neighborhood. I was like, I will punch you in the face if I see you in real life.
That's worse than fake Whinnies.
Oh my God, it was awful. It was awful. And then they're like following the poor guy who's like loading the horse, the guy from the riding center. And they're like, how did he escape? How are you going to prevent him from getting out again? He was like, we just got this horse. He's like, somebody let him out. And then they speed off. It was like some sort of paparazzi situation where they're chasing this poor guy down. Oh my God. I just wanted to kick everybody in the shin.
And they did say that they thought it might have been vandalism, that somebody opened the gate. They're going to put cameras up now. But
how did they not already have cameras?
I know,
oh my
it's
God.
right in the city. I mean, this one is literally right in the city. Anybody knows anything about Philadelphia.
They did say the horse was taken to the vet and is now resting at its barn.
Well,
in its stall.
It should do barrels because that thing can book. It should be really doing barrels or something.
Yeah, it was definitely hauling.
I love the Philadelphia Police Department. Their tweet was, "Hey, Philly, hold your horses so we don't have to."
Shut up. He just wanted to see the neighborhood. Oh, I was like, I hate you so much right now.
So far we've had mankinis and really bad horse puns in the news today.
It's just going uphill. I can't go downhill any further.
Well, I have a Japanese study later on in the show for you. You can hold on for that, and we'll see what that has to say.
I also will tell you that I'll give you a news story in the post show that was in SFW. And I'll give you that in the post show because y'all are some weird, twisted folks sending me some stories. Oh my God.
What we have coming up next, we have Brad back with us for part 4 of the Trailer 101 segment that we've been doing. And I got a request from a bunch of listeners to talk about tires. When do you need new ones? What's the whole story on tires? What do we inflate them to? Which ones do we need? What ply and all that stuff. So tires were the most asked question we had, and Brad answers some of those questions right now.
Welcome to our monthly horse trailer series, brought to you by Double D Trailers. Find them online at doubledtrailers.com. That's double, the letter D, trailers.com.
Glenn here, founder of the Horse Radio Network and host of Horses in the Morning. One of the top requested segments we have gotten from listeners is about trailers and trailer safety. Brad Heath is here from Double D Trailers, and he is with us for a 5-part series on trailers. Brad is the owner of Double D Trailers with over 25 years experience in the horse trailer manufacturing and equestrian industry. I know that you've been enjoying this series. I've heard from a lot of you. If you missed the first 3 parts, you can find them at horseradionetwork.com/trailer. That's horseradionetwork.com/trailer. Today in part 4, we are talking about tires, axles, and suspension. So, Brad, let's start with explaining what tires should be on a trailer. You know, the plies and all that stuff. What should be on a horse trailer?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us, Glenn. Good to talk to you guys again. So with us, it's all about the weight that's being carried on the tires and wheels and axles. Our push is, and my belief always has been, to properly match the suspension to the load being carried, meaning if there's 4,000 pounds of weight on the suspension system, which includes the wheels, axles, and tires, we really don't need an 8 or 10,000 pound capacity suspension, because it ends up being a negative ride if it's too stiff, and can transfer too much shock and vibration back to horses' feet and legs. I actually had a client years ago that was a small 2-horse gooseneck, and he just insisted that he had 12,000 pound suspension with 16-inch 10-ply tires. He'd had so many tire failures over the years. And I said, man, it's going to pull like a tank. It's going to ride rough. There's no way. So anyway, he insisted. We built it. He paid for it. He was gone for about a half an hour, and then he came back and said, "I can't pull this thing. It's bouncing all over the place." So since then, when it comes to suspension, clients have some ideas occasionally, but I always defer to what we know works. And as far as the number of plies, it depends on the capacity. So like an 8-ply tire, you're typically going to see that in a D rating. And, if you look on the sidewall of the tire, it will tell you how many pounds that tire will hold. So if it's a C-rated tire, which holds 2,000 pounds per tire in a round number, and you have 4 tires, the tires are capable of carrying, 8,000 pounds. And then as the tire increases, you go from an 8-ply to a 10-ply, right on up to, I think, a 12 or 14 on some of the larger ones.
Now, we've all seen the horse trailers with car tires on them. Do you recommend trailer tires specifically?
Yeah, we always.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Yeah, the LT for light truck versus the ST, like a tire size, is an ST 235/80 R16. The ST simply means special trailer.
Okay.
And when you're hauling a top-heavy load, like an RV or a horse trailer that's loaded, and you're going around curves and different things, you need that stiffer sidewall to be able to handle the top heaviness. And that's really where the trailer tire comes into play. It just has that stiffer sidewall suspension than what the LT does.
So look for an ST, for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
And then your plies, again, are going to depend on weight.
That's right. Most D-rated tires are 8-ply, which is a 15-inch size. Most 16-inch tires are going to be an E-rated, which would be a 10-ply. And then you can jump up to a G-rated as well, which would be a higher ply.
I don't know if you want to get into brands. Is there a brand that you personally like the best?
Well, for many years, we purchased our tires from Carlisle Tire and Wheel out of
my
Villarica.
worked there, actually.
Yeah, Villarica, Georgia. And those guys, they were good on warranties. They were good to work with. But, man, it just seemed like every week I had somebody calling on a fairly new trailer or one within a couple of years, like having blowouts. So we saw more failures than what I care to have seen working with those guys. for the last several years, we've purchased majority of tires and wheels from Treadit, is the name of the supplier. And I believe the brand of tire itself is Tomax.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yep.
Yeah, they're one of the few manufacturers that I've found that has a 5-year warranty on their tires. Most of them are only like 2 years. And we've had really good service out of Tomax. You're just going to have a failure sometimes, but they have been few and far between. They really have.
So now you got the right tire. What are the top tips for maintaining tires on a horse trailer?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen that leads to a blowout or a premature failure, other than hitting the sidewall when you're making a sharp turn on a curb or something like that and causing damage, would either be overinflation or underinflation on the tire pressure. And what happens is if you're running a tire that's underinflated, the heat buildup will be more than what it should be. And it will just weaken that rubber compound. So you may run it underinflated the first time, and then, you air it back up the second time and think, oh, I got it. It didn't blow out. But, I think in my mind that it's already weakened that tire some. So it's just very important in maintaining tires, keep the pressures where they're supposed to be. I don't know why horse trailer the tires tend to lose air. I rarely check the air on my automobile, but when I'm hauling my boat or a trailer or whatever, you just always have to check the air in them. It seems like they'll lose some sometimes.
Okay. So now I know on Facebook, especially the RVers and even in the horse trailer community, air pressure is always a contentious issue because you have the guys that say, fill it right up to the recommended cold, fill it right up to 80, right? Or whatever it says. And then you have the others that say, no, you should always run a 10 under. This has been the debate forever with tires.
It has. We air AIR. We air up the tires to the pressure that's written right on the sidewall. So if it says a KPSI 60-pound cold, we're going to fill it up to 60
Okay,
pound
that's
cold.
good to know. All right, good.
Yeah.
All right. What are the so again, the other thing that tends to happen is we all think about tires wearing out with mileage, right? Because that's what we think about with our cars. But we've tend to find that the horse trailer tires and camper tires and RV tires will tend to wear out from dry rot before they're ever going to wear out from use.
Yeah, that's right. We rarely see tires wear out. They typically just age out from elements being in use, sitting around in extreme heat, extreme cold. It's a rubber compound, so it's not going to last forever. And majority of the tire manufacturers, I think even automobile manufacturers, recommend changing tires every 6 years. With the thinking if you go longer than that, you're sort of driving on borrowed time, even, if you don't have many miles on them. And the same way with horse trailers, I've always recommended to clients, if you change your tires in the 4 to 5 year range, we typically just don't see the failures and the blowouts. But we have a lot of folks that just keep running the things until you get a blowout, and then it screws the fender up and maybe a bearing. It just makes a mess. So much better to just change them periodically and be done with it.
We always say helmets need replaced every 5 years. Do your tires at the same time. So there you go. Because helmets only last 5 years too. Mm-hmm. So what about bearings? Actually, our trailer's in right now getting some work done, and one of the things is packing the bearings and checking the bearings.
Yeah, so Dexter Axle, they're the largest manufacturing company in the world when it comes to RVs, horse trailers, recreational vehicle industry. And they recommend once per year, every 12 months or 12,000 miles, repack the bearing. So just change the grease out, take it to a tire shop or a trailer repair shop. They'll pull the wheel, pull the bearing, repack, put it back in there.
We're going to end talking about axles and suspension and things like that. What are the different types of axles? And that's changed over the years since I became a horse husband too.
It has. When we started manufacturing back in 97, we used Dexter axle then, and it was always a leaf spring suspension.
It was always leaf spring. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I'm not sure what year Dexter came out with the rubber Torflex is sort of their spin on it. But we stayed with the leaf spring for many years. It was very durable. And, I always told folks, I'm like, well, if you look at your car, it has leaf springs on it too. So it seemed to work well. It seemed to ride fine.
And you could look at them and tell when there was a problem.
You can. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. In recent years, particularly the last, I guess, maybe 10 to 12 years for us, we did move over to the Dexter rubber Torflex suspension and have done some testing with that. And it does seem to be a smoother ride than what that leaf spring suspension is. So I'm an advocate of the Dexter rubber suspension. They offer air ride. I think in, my 26, 7 years, how long I've been doing this now, maybe we've done 2 air ride suspensions. And for the cost of that, I just didn't see that it was justifiable and worthwhile to do it because what we're using works fantastic. So in my opinion, there's just not a need to have that extra upkeep, something else that can break when it's not needed.
So what do you look for with the new suspension systems? What are you looking for as far as wear and tear, or how can you tell if there's going to be a problem?
Yeah, Dexter's made some progress in recent years on being able to change certain components on the axle without just having to scrap the whole thing. One of the improvements that they've made is a never adjust braking system. On the older axles, you would have to take it into the shop every year. And then as the brake shoe or the lining itself wore, the mechanic would have to tighten the spring up, and then you run it another year and they get loose. And so you just had to constantly do it throughout the life of the brake until the shoe wore out and it started scrubbing metal on metal. Now, Dexter figured out, hey, with these never adjust brakes, they adjust themselves throughout the life of the brake. So when it wears out, it's done. And then another improvement that they've made just in recent years, I'm not even sure how long ago, is you can change out just the end of the axle, so to speak, where the rubber Torflex comes out down to the hub. So that's been an improvement as well.
So any final thoughts on tires or suspension?
I don't think so. Just if someone is ordering a custom trailer, don't go overboard with the tires and the suspension. If it's a 7,000 pound axle, or a 3,500 pound axle times 2 gives you the 7. And that's what's on most 2-horse bumper pull trailers. And even like a small 2-horse gooseneck, you'll see that size axle. So unless the size of the horse is much greater and you're having to make the trailer taller and wider and longer and those type things, there's just not a benefit in going heavier. So always try to get the suspension matched properly to the load being carried. That's going to provide the best ride for you.
Very good. Where can they learn more about Double D trailers?
Yeah, jump on our website, doubledtrailers.com. And, we have our own podcast, the Double D Trailers Podcast. So the links for that are on our website as well.
And if you want to hear the first 3 parts, you can find them again at horseradionetwork.com/trailer, doubledtrailers.com. Well, I wanted to mention that State Line Tack is once again going to be set up at Equine Affair in Ohio from April 11th to the 14th, but they're also going to be, sooner than that, in another week, they're going to be at the Horse World Expo at the Pennsylvania Farm Show Complex and Expo Center, February 29th to March the 3rd. So anybody that has been to any of these shows knows that State Line sets up a huge booth there. So you're going to find them at both places, Horse World Expo in February and Equine Affair in April. And then they're also going to the Defender Kentucky 3-day event, April 25th through the 28th. And we used to record right below their booth, actually. And they took up half the complex, so half the concourse there in the indoor. So if you want to check out State Line Tack in person, they always have all kinds of good deals there and tons of product. Then you'll find them at all three of those events coming up in the next couple of months. If you can't attend those events, then just head on over to statelinetack.com.
Oh, I'm so glad they're going to be at Defender, Land Rover, Rolex, because I'm in the market for some new riding boots, because I had some riding boots sitting in my barn and they're gone. Nothing else is gone. I don't know where they went.
I would blame your dog, actually, I think.
I mean, if you're going to take something out of my barn, there's more valuable stuff than my old ratty boots. I don't know. I've looked everywhere, and at this point, I've kind of needed new ones anyway. So I'm thinking either some coyotes grabbed them and took them out somewhere because they smelled like leather and foot. So it's just a good excuse to get new ones. So
Homer didn't bury them someplace.
Homer is not motivated enough to bury anything, Glenn. So no, they're not there. But I am happy to say I'm in the. I will be at the Kentucky 3-Day this year with some girlfriends, and we'll be doing some shopping.
Plenty of places to shop at.
Yay!
Kentucky.
This Horse Health Report is brought to you by Daily Dose Equine Non-GMO Core Nutrition for horses and ponies of all ages. And I would like to welcome one of our auditors who also is a professional equestrian saddle fitter, Janell Thomas. Hi, Janell.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming on. First of all, tell us where in the world you are right now.
I am outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Do you live around there, or do you have horses?
I do. I live in a small town called Kannapolis. This area might be more famous for a race car driver than anything else. And I do have a horse, Rookie. And he is just the apple of my eye.
Oh, that's sweet. So you are a professional saddle fitter. How did you get into that?
Actually, Rookie kind of led that way. I began my riding career a little later in life, and I started leasing a horse. And I'm very tall. I'm 6 feet tall. So there's not a lot of lesson barns that keep equipment for people who are outside of norms in terms of saddles. So I went to the tack store with my trainer. We sat in a couple of saddles. I brought one back to the barn. She said it fit my horse. 6 months later, I needed a breastplate, a crupper, a half pad, and all this chiropractic. And the vet came out, and I needed my saddle fit checked. And unfortunately, there's nobody to help. The saddle fit industry is very competitive, and it's very brand oriented. So everybody that I was calling just told me my saddle didn't fit, but they couldn't really tell me why. And they just wanted to sell me their brand. Mm-hmm. So I became a saddle fitter to understand and help my horse.
That's amazing. So basically your horse facilitated your education and learning about saddle fitting. That's fantastic.
Yes. It's been a 12-year journey.
12 years. Oh my gosh. So with all that experience, what are some of how do you approach saddle fitting? Like say you're walking up to a horse with a saddle in your hand. What are you going to do?
The first thing I do is start with an evaluation of the horse's body. Every horse has asymmetry. It's not a remark. It's just the way we're all built. So we need to identify where that is so that we can adjust the saddle to make sure that the rider is level. If the rider isn't level or balanced, the horse can never be because they're constantly fighting the pull from the rider. So once we address the asymmetry in the horse, then we can better understand what is needed in terms of saddle fit for both the horse and the rider. That's a dual process. A saddle needs to be used for the benefit of both. We don't buy the saddle that we deal with because it fits the horse, because that's a ride every time. That's just a huge compromise. So we buy the right thing at the right time, and everybody does better.
Gotcha. So you check out the asymmetry, and then do you take this? I've seen saddle fitters like put the saddle on the horse with no pads just to check fit.
Yes. Yes. Verify all of the angles, the angle of the tree, the shape of the tree, the shape of the panels, then identify what kind of deficits there might be, whether it needs to be reflocked, if the panel materials are just incorrect for the horse, period, end of story. So sometimes you can't make a saddle fit. There's no material in the world that is universally applied that makes the saddle fit if your horse is a narrow to an extra wide. That doesn't exist. So we have to look at every horse and every rider as a unique pair, and the saddle becomes their tool to see them to their goals. The saddle industry becomes a little convoluted because there's a lot of variety there.
I mean, it's everybody's got an opinion. That's the kind of thing you look at.
Yes.
So what are some of the most common things that you see people with, like, say I have this horse? What are some of the common things you see people making mistakes with when they have their saddle? Is it, are they too wide? Are they too narrow? Are they too long? What's the problems?
Yes, and yes. Just a variety. Saddles come in a variety of different shapes because horses come in a variety of different shapes. So that's what saddle setting is. We are matching the shape of the saddle to the horse. So that is the first primary thing we have to do. We have to make sure that the integrity of the tree and the panels matches the shape of the horse. If it doesn't, sometimes there's flexibility. We have a horse that we're rehabbing. If we have a horse in training, so long as the fit is close, sometimes there's tools out there that we can use, a half pad with shims, to make the fit manageable for the horse while they're getting to where they need to be. But if you have a fit horse that is uninjured and is currently working, that saddle needs to fit with no Band-Aids. They can't do their job appropriately otherwise, and to ask them to do that is really unfair. So your saddle needs to be the right tool for them.
Gotcha.
We need the right tree and the right panels.
So I have say I've got a younger horse that, you've got the right tree and shape, but he's going to continue to develop. Do I have to buy a new saddle every 6 months, or is that idea of the shims in the saddle pads, can you start with that and then make your way up to just the saddle?
Ideally, you're working with a saddle fitter, and you're probably having them out every 3 to 4 months to keep up with the changing shape of a young horse. Your saddle's going to need to be rebalanced if your horse is growing that quickly. Most horses, by the time they're riding, their body's going to change by muscle, less about growth from being a young horse. Does that make sense?
Well, that's why I asked, because I have, of course, a thoroughbred that came off the track, and he is probably done growing, but he had not put on the appropriate muscle that he would have. So, the saddle fitter came out, evaluated, got the saddle, the shims, all the things you're talking about. And then as he continued to develop, we've now removed the shims and the saddle fits perfectly. So you kind of have to be a little bit of you have to see into the future.
Kind of, yes. Most certifications require me to fit the horse that I have now. Being a practical and pragmatic person, I understand that the horse is going to change and develop. So we don't fit things so tightly that there is no room for fluctuation. They're not like stretch pants. They don't fit that snugly to the body. There is typically a little more room in a saddle to accommodate nominal growth. Now, that being said, if you buy a 3-year-old and you buy a small tree and then they all of a sudden, bloom into something else, we can't really control for that. But most horses, you have an idea of where their body is going to go in terms of general shape, like how wide or narrow they're going to be. So it's not like I'm going to buy a narrow tree today and then in 6 months I'm going to need an extra wide. Please, anybody, dispel that notion from fear from the back of your mind. That will probably never, ever happen. If you go from a thoroughbred to a draft cross, yep, you're probably going to need a new saddle.
Yeah.
But if you
seems to always happen.
have
You always need a new saddle. Always.
I wanted to bring that up because if I don't, then listeners are going to be mad. So you can't afford a new saddle. And I think that what happens is the people who get saddle fitters out tend to be ones who can afford it if they needed to. But the people who don't get saddle fitters out are ones who say, well, I got to use this saddle regardless. Does it still pay to have a saddle fitter out? Can you help them
Absolutely
fit the saddle they have knowing they can't afford a new one?
We don't always have to buy a brand new saddle. There is a plethora of used saddles on the market. There are a plethora of consignment saddles. There are many saddle manufacturers who take trade-ins and do buybacks or have demo programs or discounts. So not everybody needs to spend upwards of $7,000 to make sure that their horse is comfortable. However, if you're riding in a saddle that doesn't fit your horse and hasn't been fitted, it's going to cause damage. So if you don't invest in the right fitting tool, you're going to have a vet bill. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Can some of that be accomplished depending on what's wrong with through pads and different things like that?
Sometimes. It really depends. If you have a curvy-backed horse, they can't go in a straight tree. And vice versa. It's going to cause permanent damage to the muscle structure of the horse.
Can you tell this is the horse husband speaking here? Can you tell the horse husband's coming out?
Glenn, buy the damn saddle. Just buy it. It'll save you in the long run.
For the horse husbands listening, buy the correct saddle. It will save you more money in the long run.
Basically, Glenn, you're just going to have to buy the dang saddle because otherwise, yes, it causes damage to the horse, but then you have to listen to your wife come home and complain about how her horse would try to buck her off, and then we got to get trainers, and then you're going to have to get all sorts of hospital bills, chiropractic adjustments. Just buy the right saddle, and it'll keep it. Now, that's the question, Janell. What are some of the most common signs you see of horses wearing an ill-fitted saddle? When can you be like, oh, that's the saddle?
If your saddle is sitting on the wither, you're going to need a new saddle. And conversely, if your saddle is sitting so far above the wither that the panels, and I'm talking about an English saddle, the panels are above the wither line, you're going to need a new saddle. That's too narrow and the other is too wide. So we definitely need some professional assistance in those cases. Like I said, saddle fitting is about matching the shape of the horse to the right tree. Every manufacturer out there thinks that they have the answer to all the problems, which is why there's so many saddles out there, because everybody has their own tree shape and panel shape. So saddles are kind of like jeans. You might need to go up a size or down a size depending on the manufacturer, and there's some that are just not going to work for you. It's not personal. It's just their way of making a saddle.
I do love a good boot cut jean. A little particular. So we've got the horse wearing, you walk up to a horse, you think it's a pretty good saddle. What are some of the very basics to how to tell if you have the correct saddle? I know you just talked about the withers because, it needs to be 3 fingers above the withers to the bottom of the pommel?
To start, firstly, you need to be able to put your saddle in the right place. So the saddle does not go on the shoulder, it goes behind it. So depending on if you have a jump or a dressage saddle, you'll see a little bit more of the shoulder in a jump saddle, because once we get into 2-point or half seat, our center of gravity changes, and that needs to be more in line with the horse. So we don't ever want our chest in front of the wither, because if the horse were to ever stumble, that's just going to shoot the rider straight out in front of the horse and be a tragedy. That's just a tragedy waiting to happen. So you want to make sure our saddle is behind the scapula in an appropriate place for the discipline that we're riding.
Okay.
So if the tree points match the angle of the shoulder, so you'll have to lift up the skirt, maybe the flap, depending on the type of saddle that you have, to find the edge of your tree point. It looks like a little half moon. If anybody has seen the changeable gullet systems that actually have the metal gullets, every single tree point looks like the edge of one of those. It's a rounded tongue depressor looking thing. So you're looking for the edge of that. and you need to look at the edge of your horse's shoulder. So those two things should be parallel. And you can take a picture and literally, with your iPhone or whatever phone you have, make two lines, one for the shoulder and one for the tree point. And if those two lines don't match up, your tree angle isn't right. And the saddle will be inherently unstable because of that.
Hey, but you know what? That's a great, that's actually something to think about. Can you send us a picture with it drawn so we can see exactly what you're talking about? And just email it to me and I'll post it on the Horses in the Morning page.
I will.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm trying to follow along, but also it's like, I think I know what you're talking about, but definitely send that. And then what's the other, give me one more tip.
A lot of manufacturers are making saddles because of what the market is demanding. So we have a lot of manufacturers who are producing saddles that actually eclipse the longissimus dorsi now. The longissimus dorsi is the muscle group that runs parallel to the spinal processes and is where the rider weight needs to be supported. When the panels sit outside of this, now we're interfering with, firstly, the horse's ability to lift their abs correctly and use their hind end. So you can imagine the fallout of pain that follows. It goes all the way down to the feet. Mm-hmm. Can't lift, can't round, goes stifle hawk all the way down. Then we also have the inability to breathe correctly in the horse because we're sitting on the ribs. So I can also put together a little picture or video showing how to palpate for the edge.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great. It's almost like if you have like an ill-fitting bra on, and it's just like kind of pinching you in the wrong spot, then it makes you crazy. It ruins your day. So yeah, horses and bras, Glenn. There's always a connection.
I don't ride or wear a bra, so I'm kind of out on having an opinion on this one.
Here's what you have to do. Just buy the saddle and shut up. That's pretty much what your husband's job is. Well, Janell, this is awesome. Where can people get a hold of you or go to you to ask questions or learn more?
I'm on Facebook under my personal name, Janell Cameron. I don't advertise, which sounds horrible. I'm 100% word of mouth, and I'm very busy because of that. So that's why I don't advertise, but I'm happy to help anybody with an auditor question. I'm in the auditor room.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, Janell, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this. And definitely send those over so we can put those in the show notes and people can go and find out exactly all these, kind of get a picture in their mind.
Non-GMO whole food nutrition is the basis of the entire Daily Dose Equine program. We never forget that natural is better and simplicity is key. Daily Dose Equine uses non-GMO whole food ingredients like alfalfa, timothy, peas, sunflower seeds, and flax. Daily Dose Equine doesn't use fillers, bulking agents, or leftovers from other industries, so you can feed less yet improve body condition and energy. And our feeds are free from chemical residues and glyphosate. Find the perfect formulation for your horse at dailydoseequine.com. Select Daily Dose Equine formulations are available nationwide through chewy.com and tractorsupply.com.
Well, before we get to weird news, I was doing a study show getting it ready for one of the episodes coming up, and I actually found a study I read and was interested in. It was involving horses. So a Japanese study sought to determine whether exposing horses to extended light mimics the length of day. In other words, if they had more light, would it influence a horse's growth and maturity when they're younger? So apparently, nearly all the thoroughbreds in Japan are raised in a place called Hokkaido, which has cold winters with days shorter, much shorter days, and then they have cool summers. But they wanted to determine if they gave them artificial light, because the days are so short, would that help their growth? So they used 73 thoroughbreds between 21 and 24 months old to determine whether artificially extending daylight would change their body composition. The horses were placed in two groups. Basically, a bunch of them were placed under a 100-watt light bulb, which doesn't quite seem like enough, to be honest. It's like, I thought maybe they would have 10 light bulbs, to simulate daylight, but a 100-watt light bulb in their stalls. And,
isn't that like what you have like in your bathroom?
Yeah, exactly. And where each received 14 and a half hours of daylight between December and April. So they kept it on for like 15 hours a day. The control group received no additional lighting, and all the horses had up to 2 hours in a pasture per day, which doesn't seem like a lot for us, but for thoroughbreds, apparently it is. And a standard training program. And what they concluded, the bottom line, there was a lot of technical bottom lines, but what they concluded was that the thoroughbreds under lights tolerated additional high-intensity training better than those horses not under lights in the winter.
Did they talk about how the mares all came into heat early?
They didn't talk about that. I don't know if they were all geldings or what, or stallions or what, but they did determine that more light helps you. And I think anybody that has, what's that disorder?
SAD, seasonal affective disorder.
Anybody that has that would tell you, yes, they will perform better if there's more light. I think that that's pretty much a given. So once again, it's a study that we probably already knew the answer to, but the Japanese did it, and I thought I would share it. So
did they actually say how they concluded it, or then you just edited that part out, or
they concluded it by its they talked about hormones and a bunch of big words I didn't know.
Okay, so you just didn't know how to say the words.
Yeah, I just went to the
What's the result?
That's the result right here is the result. How they got there, it was all technical crap. But it sounded official. So there you go. You need to just keep the lights on in the barn for your horses 24 hours a day. Is what it
Does that work for children? Can you just leave the light on? They handle things better?
Has that worked for you?
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm willing and able.
All right, let's get to some weird news.
Time to learn why some days you're embarrassed to be part of the human race. In Jamie's Weird News.
Yes, that is true. And if you're ever looking through the news wherever you get it and you see a story that's like, wow, that's so weird, email it to me, jamie@horseradionetwork.com, just like Julie, Claire, Allison, Delia, Kelly, Laureen, Allie, Melissa, Ashley, Thomas, Danielle, and Ina all did. Thank you guys for sending it. I won't reveal the source of where you're getting your news, but again, some of you sent some pretty gross things, and I love it. So keep it going. But I can't do those on the show. But I've got one for you in the post show. The first one is really gross, but it is like, this took off, Glenn, and I'm sure you've heard about the flight that was going from Amsterdam to Detroit that had to turn around and go back to Amsterdam. No, did you hear about this? Delta flight, Amsterdam to Detroit. This lady is sitting in her seat, and all of a sudden these things start from above. I guess it was, I don't know if the overhead things just popped open or it just started like seeping out. But basically she was sitting in her seat, and above her, maggots started falling down on her head. Yeah. One of the people
from like the overhead bin.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So they opened the overhead bin. A ton of maggots dumped out. It's because there was a suitcase containing rotten fish in the overhead bin. And
who the hell travels with this stuff? You have these stories all the time of people traveling with like meat and fish. And
again, it's illegal to carry like meat across the globe. You know, you can't do that. You have to.
We do have fish here. You can buy it at any store.
Yeah. So basically they had to turn the airplane around. They landed, exited, cabin was clean. The suitcase involved was put in a bag to be burned.
Have to clean airplanes. Ugh.
Oh my God. They don't get paid enough. No. So apparently everybody was given 8,000 air miles, a hotel room, compensation, and a $30 meal ticket if they were delayed from continuing.
If I was a lady getting the maggots in the hair, I want more than that.
It is unclear if the suitcase owner was fined or if any action was taken against him. I would be so mad if my flight had to get turned around because of some rotten fish that was leaking
can you imagine
maggots.
The smell when they opened it up.
Oh my God. How did nobody see? Like, I have more questions than answers, really. Honestly. But there you go.
Well, that's all I'm going to think about all day now.
You're welcome. Here, you know what? Think about this. We're going to go to Albany, New York, because a New York City man was spending some time in Canada and decided to come across the border to go home. So he it says he took a bus. His name is Calvin Bautista. He's 38 years old, and he crossed into northern New York on a bus. And when the Customs and Border Protection officers, had him come out, they were like, something is suspicious. Why? Because he was wearing giant sweatpants. And do you know what he had underneath his sweatpants, Glenn?
I don't want to even guess.
In his sweatpants, they were tied in his pants on his thighs, and it was a bunch of Burmese pythons. Like
in his pants.
In his pants. In his pants. He had taken the drawstrings from his sweatpants and tied bags of snakes in like his crotch, like his inner thighs. Yeah. He
okay,
did
now
get
this is all I'm going to be thinking about.
Let's see how much we can freak you out today.
Oh my God.
Apparently he had purchased the snakes in Canada at a pet store and then brought them into the country. But of course, as you know, if he would have just gone to Florida, he could have gotten them for free.
He could have found tons of them.
Yeah. So apparently it's vulnerable in Asia, but invasive in Florida. And he could have just gone to Florida, but he is now, he got arrested.
Can I just say that men are usually more protective of the other thing in their pants than this particular gentleman apparently is?
You would think.
Oh
I mean, yeah, as there's no excuse for it.
Oh, God.
I'm looking at a beautiful mugshot right now. You know what? If you learn nothing from this show ever, just take away this one piece of information. Drugs are bad. Do not do drugs. Just don't do it. It's nothing good is going to happen about it. So there's a photo release of this man who, guess where he lives, Glenn?
Florida?
Yeah, he lives in Florida, and he is on the run because his name is Walter Grimes. He's 25 years old, and he stopped by his friend's apartment on South Beach Street on Monday.
Okay, first of all, what 25-year-old is named Walter anymore?
I know, and they actually address him as Walter. Like his friend says, Walter, Walter, Walter. I was like, that is such a weird name for this human. Apparently, this young man and Walter have known each other for years. And I guess, Walter and him hang out and play video games. But Walter at the moment is unhoused and was running around, apparently a little stressed about being unhoused. But then he asked his friend hey, man, can I borrow your Xbox? And the friend was like, you don't even have a house. Of course, I'm not going to give you my Xbox. What are you talking about? At that point, Walter got a little upset after his friend declined to let him take his Xbox and had a violent reaction where he grabbed a samurai sword off of the wall.
Because everybody has one of those in Florida.
Why wouldn't you have a samurai sword on your wall? And literally attacked his friend and went to slash him. But of course, the samurai sword is not sharp. So he just had a 3-inch laceration. But then Walter drops the samurai sword and runs out. So if you're in Daytona, watch out for the samurai sword wielding Walter.
We're both about the same distance from Daytona right now, too. So,
oh Lord. Well, I'll send you his. I'll send you his
Palatka
mugshot
sounds like the kind of town he would come to, actually.
We have done weird news stories in Palatka. I will tell you that, just like Ocala. So hey, we're all in it together. I'm going to leave you with this fun one. Have you heard or seen the stories about, of course, where is he from?
Florida.
We're going to go with Florida because there's a man and his name is John. He is not sharing his last name for privacy reasons, but he has 400,000 followers on his TikTok. I don't know if it's a TikTok or Instagram. I think it's Instagram. And his name is John. And he decided, at this point, I haven't heard an update. We're about 28 days in when this story was released. So it's probably, a couple more days past that. So hopefully he's still alive. Because what did he decide to do? he decided to eat raw chicken for as many days as he can until he gets sick.
Why?
Wrap your brain around
Why?
that. There's no reason. Apparently, he a couple years ago he vlogged about eating raw meat at Whole Foods every day until I die from bacteria, and then he got bored after 200 days. So there's pictures of him like he's eating raw fish and then like drinking raw eggs in a cup. Now, this picture, he does have some ketchup with him to help season the meat. He said he's experimented with raw vegan diets, plant-based, carnivore, milk only, raw beef, raw seafood, raw pork, keto, eating a stick of butter daily, etc. He just likes to try different fuels to see how it affects his, what he calls his meat suit, which is, I guess, his body.
Fuels.
Yeah. I mean, this is you could die from this. So what he says is the reason you die is factory farming, and the reason they get salmonella because he's eating them from a local chicken ranch in Florida. He's getting all of his healthy non-salmonella. Anyway, he's done 28 days consecutive of eating raw chicken. And he Instagrams about it. So you can find John the chicken eating Instagrammer, and it's called his Instagram page is called The Raw Chicken Experiment. There's no reason for this.
Well, there is. It's publicity. And I did look it up just now to see what John looked like. John looks exactly like the kind of guy who would eat raw chicken for 100 days. What you're
I didn't
picturing,
know there was a look for that.
What you're picturing is exactly what I put a picture.
It's like he's a hipster kind of like
curly
hippie
hair
dude.
and the whole thing, yeah.
He does insist that, quote, I do not need to eat raw chicken for likes. Why are you doing it then, you moron?
Okay, no, yeah, I don't. Yeah, we don't do this for likes either. So
John is also a liar. Now, companies have been sending him hot sauces and different sauces to try.
He has 500,000 followers. They're going to try, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's slimy to begin with.
It's so gross.
Oh,
it's so gross.
I like chicken, and I would. Oh. And I'm sorry. I think you could get sick even off of, homegrown chicken.
None of it makes any sense, Glenn. It's just disgusting.
You know what else
that's
doesn't
it. That's your weird news. That's it. That's so gross today. Sorry.
You know what else makes sense? And you're right in the neighborhood. If only you could stay till Saturday. Because St. Augustine's only like 40 minutes from you.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, because it's the Florida Man games on Saturday.
Oh, no, that's
St. Augustine.
weekend?
It's this weekend in St. Augustine. You could go for the Florida Man games. I got to tell you, it's coming up. We're not going to be around, or I wish I could go to the Florida Man games. I probably could have gotten press passes. They're doing the Eat the Butt Challenge.
I don't know what that means.
Well, you don't. To either. They're doing, actually it involves pork. They're doing the weaponized pool noodle mud duel. That's exactly what you think it is. They're doing the evading arrest obstacle course, which sounds like the most Florida Man thing. They're doing the cash grab. That's where they throw a bunch of cash in the air and you see how much you can grab, exactly what it is. How about the catalytic converter race? How fast can you cut off?
How fast they can steal it?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
The Florida...
You know what? I'm canceling my plans to go home. I'm staying.
I mean, the Florida sumo wrestling. And the judges are Nitro and Ice from the old Gladiator show.
Of course they are.
Yeah, by the way, I got to say that Lori Ice Fetrick looks pretty good for probably in her 60s now. And then I did see they're also having the mullet contest. The Florida Man pinup. Yes, that's exactly what you want. Chicken coop bingo. Which, by the way, just sounds like fun. We ought to try it next time we come out to your house. We need to do chicken coop bingo. And then the Brawl of the Badges, which is police officers and firefighters taking on each other in boxing.
Oh, good Lord. Let's go to this. I mean, seriously. How are you not going? I need to know what chicken bingo is.
Chicken bingo? I don't know what they have on the chicken bingo. 2 chickens will decide whether you win or lose in this fun, dirty game inspired by a Floridian family in places like blah, 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 where they literally do this for fun because they don't know that cell phones exist yet. I don't know what they put on the chicken bingo card, but I think that we need to figure that out because it does sound like fun, actually. Throw 2
You just
chickens
have to go. You just have to go be like, hi, this is Glenn Hebert on the scene at the Florida Man Games. I'm representing the Horse Radio Network. Please, it's 64 degrees and it's 7 p.m. I need you to do some reporting.
They're very smart at the Florida Man Games. This is the first time they're doing this, and I'll have to definitely plan for it next year. But they're very smart. The one judge they got is very famous in Florida, and his name is Mike from Mike's Weather. So anybody that lives in Florida knows Mike's Weather because we turn to him every hurricane season because he's much better than the weatherman. And he has millions of followers. And
you've sent me Mike the weather guy when there's stuff coming to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, Mike is one of the judges, and they did that surely to just get him to promote it on his page. But he is, and they probably will pack this place.
Maybe you should apply to be a judge next year.
Ooh.
You have a lot of scope and reach.
Yeah, not as much as Mike, I don't think.
Please go.
Mike
Just
has a
go.
NASCAR
We talk about this
named
every
after.
year.
He has a NASCAR with his name on it. So anyway, the FloridaManGames.com. You can find all the details there. If anybody is going, Clark lives up that way. Clark, you need to be our representative. Go to the Florida Man Games and give us a report.
Please go and be armed. I mean, if you have a permit, because I feel like that's a place that could potentially get dangerous. Seems like there's going to be a lot of drinking there.
I would think a lot of drinking, and a lot of Florida men will attend, I'm certain. Do you think the police are there with their facial identification software? Because
I was going to say, I can send you the samurai sword guy's mugshot, and then you can see if he's there.
You know how many wanted criminals are going to show up to Florida Man Games? The police would be smart to have their facial identification software running the whole entire time. It's going to be something. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you being here today. We'll be back again on Friday. Get your ads into Jennifer at horseradionetwork.com. You're going to be home on Friday, back in Oklahoma.
Yes, I will be. Lord willing, and the creek don't run.
All right. Hold on. Apparently, Jamie has another story for us that she couldn't do in this weird news that we're going to do in the
This is Texas. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. See you, everybody.
Hey, neuter gal, everybody.
Oh, by the way, tomorrow's the Horse Husbands episode. We had a fun one for you this time.